And that's really a good characteristic of Alan. Very strong inside, simple and effective. And it's been a pleasure to be a friend of Alan's for, I've known him over 40 years. I hope everybody enjoys his Dharma talk tonight. Thank you.
Adam, your microphone is still muted, and also the camera is still off.
Can everybody hear me now? No.
I just closed it, sorry.
Thank you, Roger. Can people hear me now?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
My video screen doesn't seem to be working, so I can't show everybody what I look like tonight. Probably just as well. But this evening, I'd like to reflect on the Dharma that the Venerable Master taught and the lessons that I learned from him. And before I start, I'd like to put my palms together and respectfully pay homage to the venerable and respected Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, patriarchs of the past, present, and future, bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasikas, upasikas, and my most revered teacher of the wonderful Dharma. I feel very fortunate to have been able to experience the Buddha's Dharma in this very life. I'd like to share a few reflections on the Venerable Master's Dharma teaching. The Venerable Master left a vast legacy of direct teaching and influential examples of the proper Buddha Dharma for current and future generations of the world to follow. If questions come up, please put them in the chat folder and we can address them as we have time. As a young man, the Venerable Master was sitting in Chan at his mother's grave when the Venerable Elder, the sixth patriarch, came to teach him and transmit the wordless mind transmission. He gave him a prediction that he would travel to propagate the Dharma of Shakyamuni Buddha beyond his homeland and to many living beings in the Western world. Later, the Master went to Nanhua Monastery to bow to the still existing flesh body of the sixth patriarch and to pay his respects to the Elder Master Shu Yun. There, the Venerable Elder Yun certified a new patriarch in 1956. In this world, the Master was a rare educator for teaching the Dharma and spreading the sacred teachings of the Buddha beyond his homeland. Dhyana Master Xuan Hua is the 45th patriarch from Shakyamuni Buddha, the 18th patriarch in China from Bodhidharma, the 9th patriarch of the Weiyang Chan lineage, and the first patriarch in America. We are all very fortunate to have met this special bhikshu. The Venerable Master left Nanhua Monastery in China for Hong Kong in 1949. After a journey to Thailand to look at the Southern School, he returned and settled in the New Territories in 1950. Local Buddhists showed him a cave in the New Territories in Kowloon on a mountain where he and his longtime disciple, Dharma Master Hung Ding, were able to stay. The master named it Guanyin Cave. There are many miraculous stories from these early years, which are stories for another time. Soon, Western Bliss Gardens, Shiyuan, was built in Hong Kong on the upper ridge of Horse Hill Village in 1951. It no longer exists. However, the cave is still there to visit, but is administered by another temple. If we have time, I'll show some photos of these early days, early years in Hong Kong. Let's briefly look into the Venerable Master's teaching legacy. What was his Dharma legacy for this and for future generations? Why did he come to America? The Master on several occasions said, "There is no one who can understand who I am." What was his meaning? As we now can begin to see by the strong presence of the virtual lineage of the Sangha he established and the many monasteries throughout the world, as well as the abundant publications in many languages, all to teach the proper Buddha Dharma. His number one intent was to plant the seed of the proper Dharma in the West. From here, it flourishes and reverberates back to Asia and around the world. This is just a small part of his teaching legacy. He tirelessly lectured every day, and many days, 2, 3, or 4 times a day. When he gave formal Dharma lectures from the high seat, he began with striking of a gavel against the table, commanding our attention and honoring our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, by reciting its name 3 times, inviting the Buddhas, together with the assembly of Bodhisattvas and all others, to attend his lecture. He taught us that giving Dharma like this was an essential and important practice in our cultivation, that we should all practice at any opportunity. It is especially important cultivation because it requires one's mind to focus and reflect on the proper Dharma. We teach others and we teach ourselves. Speaking Dharma nourishes all living beings who can hear the Dharma. He instructed his disciples that they need to request the Dharma from the teaching hosts, as is done at all his temples before sutra lectures, but also to explicitly and personally invite the Sangha to lecture and explain the vast Dharma and specific sutras. He instructed us that either 3 lay people or left home people should make a formal appointment with the Sangha and should bow and kneel respectfully, then request the Dharma 3 times from senior bhikshus or bhikshunis, requesting either a specific sutra or a general request for a sutra or shastra explanation. Whether in the US, Canada, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, Australia, we should seek and request the proper Dharma. This is really important for the future of Buddhism. One time, there was a sincere group of Dharma protectors from Gold Wheel Temple in Los Angeles who made a pilgrimage of 500 miles to the city of 10,000 Buddhas to request the Dharma on behalf of their temple. In the Guanyin Hall of 10,000 Buddhas, this sincere group circumambulated the Venerable Master and the 2 bhikshus, Hung Shur and Hung Chao, and the entire group knelt before Guanyin Bodhisattva. These Los Angeles Dharma protectors requested the monks of 3 steps, 1 bow to lecture the Flower Adornment Sutra at Gold Wheel Temple for the sake of beings in the Los Angeles area, in the country, and the world. and throughout the Dharma realm even. Consenting, the two Dharma masters responded to the request and began the lecture series at Gold Wheel Temple, lecturing every evening. So this is a lesson for all of us. We should be very sincere and keep the Dharma alive in the world. At Gold Mountain Monastery in the early 70s, at lecture time, the master would sit separate from the assembly upstairs in the library. Every evening, 3 appointed people would light incense and reverently walk upstairs, then circumambulate him 3 times and kneel to formally request him to come downstairs and speak Dharma for the assembly. When we moved to the city of 10,000 Buddhas, it was inconvenient for him to wait in another hall, so we then did the formal requesting in the Buddha hall after he was seated in the high seat. An exception to this, and the only time that we did this special formal Dharma request at CTTB, was when the abbot of Shaolin Monastery, the Venerable Haidung Fasher, gave Dharma talks to the assembly. Our Venerable Master showed great respect to Haidung Fasher. The Venerable Master also made sure that someone make an offering on behalf of the assembly at every lecture by placing a cup of water, tea, or juice on the lecture platform before beginning the lecture. The Master was always very careful to drink every last drop. These little details of respect for the Dharma and so many more were important to preserve and teach this pivotal point in the history of Buddhism. At all his temples in Hong Kong, San Francisco, and all the DRBA temples, the Venerable Master spoke Dharma every day, but he also trained future Sangha and lay people to speak the Dharma. He expected his disciples, irrespective of young or old, male or female, to speak the Dharma. There was no need for notes. Everybody spoke directly from their minds and hearts on the Dharma, whether it was explaining sutras, composing matched couplets, or general talks before the assembly. This is the way the Master trained his disciples to explain the Dharma, and this method continued while he was here. One important focus of the Venerable Master's teaching was the Pure Land School. Because in all the DRBA temples, we recite and study the Buddha speaks of Amitabha Sutra every day, and because Amitabha Buddha is inseparable from Chan, we know that there is a land called Pure, called Limitless Light, and also called Limitless Life. The sutra tells us that in this land, there are thousands of harmonious sounds and melodies heard simultaneously, all proclaiming the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. Limitless light and limitless life pervade these immeasurable lands, nourishing all things, and all the light enters all the senses of those dwelling there and proclaims the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. In this land, everywhere are gentle breezes moving throughout the land, touching everything and constantly proclaiming the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. The ground consists of the most infinite precious treasures, soft yet made of all manner of indestructible transformation jewel-like elements, glowing with multicolored golden light, and everywhere proclaiming the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. Streams and pools of pure sparkling calm and peaceful water flow over the land, nourishing all living things constantly proclaiming the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. Trees and flowers gently move, and pools of transformation lotus flowers all proclaim the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. So this is really amazing. As the Venerable Master was fond of saying, everything speaks the Dharma. What is this wonderful, inexpressible Dharma? He constantly tried to tell us about. The Dharma, so often spoken by the Venerable Master, brought great joy and happiness to tens of thousands of listeners. This Dharma is what Shakyamuni Buddha and the Venerable Master have left us with to follow, a path of awakening. This joy in the Dharma is a legacy left to us by the Venerable Master. In the Shurangama Sutra, it describes the making of a way place to cultivate awakening to our original self-nature. So too, the Venerable Master created multiple way places where living beings could take refuge and cultivate, to realize awakening and open their wisdom. The Venerable Master said, creating temples is not as good as creating human beings. Creating human beings is not as good as creating Buddhas. I want to mold teachers. I want to mold living Buddhas, to mold living bodhisattvas, to mold living patriarchs. I want to mold living beings in this world so that they turn into living Buddhas, living bodhisattvas, and living patriarchs. Whether disciples of the Master or not, all students of the Buddha should seize this opportunity to fulfill this great ambition. That means all of us now should seize this opportunity because it won't last long. Originally, there was no division in Buddhism, and our goal is to return to the one. He reminded us all often, the harder you work, the greater the response. He has said, the way place is for cultivating. Everything is provided. You have food, clothing, a place to live. You should really cultivate the path now. If you still do not cultivate here, then even if you make it to the Pure Land, you won't cultivate. What are you waiting for? If you don't cultivate now, when will you ever cultivate? Do not miss this opportunity to cultivate, he said. He also used to say, those who can speak the Dharma are not as good as those who know how to listen. Those who know how to listen are not as good as those who know how to practice. At all the temples he established, all are welcome to come and to cultivate. This is our inheritance, and this is part of our precious Dharma legacy. The city of 10,000 Buddhas is modeled after the Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha, a place where living beings can study and practice the Dharma equally, according to their individual understanding and conditions. Even the street names come from the words of the sutra. In the Pure Land, Guanyin Bodhisattva is the host bodhisattva there. Now, instead of traveling all the way to China, you can worship Guanyin Bodhisattva at the city of 10,000 Buddhas. You can go to Potala Mountain in China or the city of 10,000 Buddhas in the United States to create a special relationship with Guanyin Bodhisattva. At the city of 10,000 Buddhas, Guan Shiyin Bodhisattva is the host, and Earth Store Bodhisattva acts as the Dharma protector. Earth Store Bodhisattva is the host of Gold Wheel Monastery in Los Angeles, and Guanyin Bodhisattva is its Dharma protector there. Zhuhua Mountain in China is Earth Store Bodhisattva's Bodhimanda in China. Universal Worthy Bodhisattva is the host at Gold Summit Monastery in Seattle. And Manjushri is the Dharma protector there. Mount Ime, Universal Worthy's Bodhimanda is in China. And Manjushri Bodhisattva is the host of Gold Buddha Monastery in Vancouver. And Universal Worthy Bodhisattva is the Dharma protector there. In China, Mount Wutai is where Manjushri Bodhisattva dwells for the sake of living beings there. We have the great good fortune that the Venerable Master invited these 4 great bodhisattvas to come to America and to these 4 temples so that we can pay homage to them without traveling the great distance to China. The Venerable Master's residence at the City of 10,000 Buddhas was landscaped with the Pure Land as inspiration. It had 7 rows of trees, all producing jewel-like fruit. There are rare and wonderful multicolored birds, peacocks, herons, and egrets, and herds of deer roam about. Speaking about the City of 10,000 Buddhas, I would like to tell everyone about a dream I had recently. In this dream, the mountain gate at the City of 10,000 Buddhas was not merely a physical building or a symbolic object. It was alive. It was glowing with a golden light that illuminated throughout the 10 Dharma realms like a beacon, showing the way for the multitude of living beings to find the proper Dharma. It shone everywhere. All beings throughout the 10 Dharma realms with a sincere heart could find the City of 10,000 Buddhas and the proper Dharma this way. It glowed with limitless light and bathed all who passed through its arches, both coming and going, purifying, blessing, and cleansing the mists and clouds that obscure our original nature. Now, I don't know if this is a real dream or a dream of another realm, but it was very real to me. And the gate, the mountain gate at the City of 10,000 Buddhas does shine. When I think about it, when I see it, it has a very beautiful glow to it. And I believe the Master said one time at the dedication of the gate that all living beings could see the gate from limitless distance away. The Venerable Master considered this gate to be of the utmost importance in solidifying the presence of the City of 10,000 Buddhas in the world. When we built the gate, it had to be done just so. It had to be built right over the center of an earthquake fault, and it had to be oriented to a specific compass point to complete the potential function. I contemplate now how special this entry to the City of 10,000 Buddhas this is. The mountain gate is a mere 40 years old. It took 3 years to build. Construction began in 1979, and it was officially dedicated in 1982. It is currently closed to visitors and has been closed now for 3 years for both renovation and because of the COVID virus spreading throughout the world. Now, renovation is complete and the COVID virus is no longer so fearful. So I hope that the gate can quickly be reopened again as the front door to the city of 10,000 Buddhas to serve its intended function as the Master intended and act as a beacon throughout the Dharma realm to welcome and bless all who seek, support, and protect the proper Dharma.
Excuse me, Alan, do you have more pictures to show us?
This is all I have for now.
Okay, that's okay. People were asking the question.
Oh, is there any questions? Yeah, okay, I can interrupt here.
No question yet. They just want to ask whether there are more pictures.
Oh, there is more pictures, and let me share them with you. These are pictures that have been accumulated through the years of temples that the Venerable Master started in Hong Kong. When he came to the new territories after leaving Nanhua Monastery, he found this very small cave. And there's a picture that gives us a little idea of the size of it on the left-hand side, the upper right-hand side, which was taken in the late 80s. But the picture on the upper left-hand side is the cave as it was in the early 1950s. So this has an image of Guan Yin on the altar and it was a very small space. So this was the main altar for the cave. And there's a lot of great stories that can be told of this time, miraculous events that happened while the Master lived there. There was no water there, and he stuck his staff into the ground, and a spring started pouring forth pure and clear water that he drank and shared with others who lived in the area. I don't want to go into too much detail, but after he lived in this cave from 1950 until he could build Western Bliss Gardens in Hong Kong. And on the right-hand side here is the original Buddha Hall. It was very small. The Master is standing in the doorway, which is probably a quarter of the width. If that's the whole Buddha Hall is probably 10 feet wide, so it's very small. And then later he did an addition and tripled the size of it, so that we have a view of the original one and later addition. So there's a little commentary I put with the pictures. Shiluyuan, Western Bliss Garden in Hong Kong, was built on the upper ridge of Mashan Horse Hill village in Siwanho in 1951, and respectfully dedicated to the three Tathagatas, the three Buddhas, Akshobhya Buddha, Amitabha Buddha, and Shakyamuni Buddha. The original Western Bliss Gardens in the lower left photo was only, that's wrong, the lower right photo was only a small one-room temple, and later more rooms were added in the lower left. I've got that reversed. So that was 1950, he stayed in this cave, and then he started building Western Bliss Gardens, and in 1951, it was he moved over there. This picture of him in the middle, this top center picture is him sitting on a boulder at Guanyin Cave. And you can see that he was very thin. Those were days that were very hard. One story is, pardon? Oh, let's see, maybe I can make them bigger for people. Yeah, here we go. Well, the quality isn't quite as good, but when he first came to sit in the cave, nobody knew he was there. And to him, it didn't matter. He just wanted to sit and go into samadhi. So he sat there. I don't know how long it was. I can't remember the story too accurately, but he sat there for, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks, if not longer. And a couple of people in Hong Kong started to have dreams about this monk who was living in the New Territories up in the hills, and that they should bring offerings of food to him. So a few early disciples found him and started bringing food for him to eat and made offerings to him. One of many, many good stories. So after 1951, he opened Western Bliss Garden, and at that time there were thousands of immigrants from mainland China that had come to Hong Kong. So it was very difficult years, and the master always gave whatever he could to the Sangha that was exiled from the mainland, and taught and transformed many people there. He also started a new monastery called Xising Monastery on Lantau Island. So this, it started out with a house that a sincere disciple gave him, a small villa there in the mountains. And he turned that into a Buddha hall and built, added to it and built other buildings for residences for monks and nuns, bhikshus, bhikshunis, and lay people would come. There's no roads to this temple, so that everything had to be carried on the backs of the master and his disciples. Heavy sacks of concrete, gravel, sand, bricks, whatever needed to be taken up the mountain. So from his temple, from Western Bliss Gardens in Hong Kong, he would come over every day, take the ferry over to Lantau Island, and go up to Man Chow Pu. And with no roads or vehicles, it was only accessible by foot. By 1953, the master opened the monastery and began planning for an urban center in Hong Kong where the faithful could cultivate. So he opened Xising Monastery in 1953, and was soon looking into establishing something in a more urban area of Hong Kong where the city dwellers could come and study the Buddha Dharma. So another 3 years later, he established the Buddhist Lecture Hall in Happy Valley in Hong Kong. So he had 3 temples then in Hong Kong, in this Hong Kong area. And he was constantly lecturing the Dharma, managing the temples, helping establish the proper Dharma in Hong Kong. In 1959, when he opened the Buddhist Lecture Hall, shortly after he opened it, the Venerable Master Xu Yun entered the stillness, and this was a grave and momentous experience for the master because he was very close to Xu Yun. And he held a 108-day ceremony to honor this great Dharma master. And this is on the left-hand side is Master Hua, who's presiding over an offering altar at the Buddhist Lecture Hall. And in the middle is the Venerable Master at the Buddhist Lecture Hall during this time. And on the right-hand side is the altar at the Buddhist Lecture Hall. It was taken a few years ago. So this, and people, if they want to, can go to the Buddhist Lecture Hall in Hong Kong, and if you go, you should certainly make offerings and bow to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the Venerable Master. So this is a picture of the Dharma transmission from Venerable Xu Yun to Dhyana Master Xuan Hua, who it says is the 45th patriarch from Shakyamuni Buddha, the 18th patriarch in China from Bodhidharma, the 9th patriarch of the Wei Yan lineage, and the first patriarch in America. This was given to the master in 1956. Venerable Xu Yun wrote this out, stamped it, signed it, and sent it to Venerable Master Hua before he entered the stillness. So this is, I just bring this up so that those who maybe don't, most of us maybe are a little bit familiar, but I'm sure there's many people who haven't seen some of these pictures and this official Dharma transmission. So I wanted to share those with people because this is this is the master's teachings, and this is the legacy that he has left us. He was rare and exceedingly special bhikshu, and he spent his entire life propagating the proper Dharma. And he brought back many dharmas, to contemporary planet Earth, to this world, including having his monks and nuns, his bhikshus and bhikshunis, all wear precept sash at all times when in public. This is something that very few other Mahayana Sangha do, and the other things common that he instituted again were eating one meal a day. He advocated his disciples and Sangha sleep sitting up, eat one meal a day, study and follow the precepts, investigate Chan, investigate the teaching school, the Pure Land school. Some people called him a Chan master, some people called him a Vinaya master, some people called him a Tripitaka master. He was all of these and so much more. So this is a little bit of history before he came to the West. And I think this is very motivational. I always get inspired when I think about the difficult work he had, how he established these temples, how he established these monasteries, and taught and spoke the proper Dharma, not only in Hong Kong, but he brought this to a new country, to the Western world, to America, and this is remarkable. That's all I can think to say. I wanted to, so these are the pictures. This is a good photo of the master at the Buddhist Lecture Hall in Hong Kong. So I'll leave this here, and I want to talk a little bit more about the Venerable Master's legacy. So I talked about the mountain gate at the city of 10,000 Buddhas and how really remarkable and special this is. I don't know if anybody else feels this way about the gate, but I think it's one small part of how special the city of 10,000 Buddhas is, and one small part of how special all his temples are. Whenever I go to any other monasteries, whether Hong Kong, Taiwan, any of them, anywhere in the world, I always feel like I'm coming home to Master Hua. I feel like his presence is there, and they are a beacon, a mountain of the proper Dharma in the world. So he created all these monasteries all over the world, and he constantly spoke the Dharma, hoping to liberate all living beings. And this is the Dharma. This is the Dharma that he wished so earnestly for people to understand and experience. So I'd like to try and talk about what this Dharma is. As at the introduction, it was explained that I took refuge with the Master in 1970. So over the last 50 years, I've been investigating the Buddha Dharma and trying to understand what this great Dharma that the Master tried to teach us. So in a small way, I will try and explain it as I see with my limited vision. The Dharma has no self and no other, yet it is our original home. It has no birth and death, no coming or going, no beginning or end, not even time or space. It is like the sound of one hand clapping. It embraces all of the sounds. It encompasses all things. It is unmoving stillness and pervades everywhere. It contains everything, yet has no dwelling. It may be called thusness, but it has no name. In the Shurangama Sutra, it says that even this emptiness is a false thought. It can't be conceived with our discriminating minds. But this is the treasure and the jewel that we're all seeking. You can't use the mind that comes and goes like the clouds to enter this wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. So how do we get there? Fortunately, we've been left with the best instructions. We can follow the Buddha's instructions and follow the patriarchs of the past. Just purify our mind and our heart, return the light within, and stop the outflows of the mind. This is easy, but the most difficult thing in the world. The Venerable Master said in his commentary to the Shurangama Sutra, form, feeling, thinking, formations, and consciousness are all like this. The 5 skandhas are like floating clouds. They emptily come and go. The 3 poisons, like air bubbles in water, rise and disappear when we enter the Dharma realm. What are these 3 poisons? They're ignorance, attachment, and aversion. The Venerable Master lived to teach us the contrary. The antidote to ignorance is wisdom. The antidote to attachment is giving. The antidote to aversion and hatred is compassion. This is called the transformation of the 3 poisons, and we should all practice it. Wisdom, giving, and compassion should always be our guide and goal. The Venerable Master said, when not one thought arises, the entire substance manifests. When the 6 faculties stir, one is covered by clouds. As the Vajra Sutra or Diamond Sutra explains it, no self, no other, no living beings, no lifespan. This is the true mind of equality. When this state arises, we're making a little progress in our cultivation. We are all capable of this experience, but it is only to be had with practice. If we investigate the teaching school, the Pure Land school, the Vinaya school, the secret school, or the Chan school, all of these are there to purify our mind and guide us to return to our original nature. If we practice patience and draw near to the proper Dharma, then it will all come alive. So we don't want to seek after or hold on to any state that arises in our minds. These will become obstructions in the way. Just keep following your Dharma practice. By diligent practice, we open our wisdom and fathom the wonderful, inexpressible Dharma. This is our goal, and this is the Dharma legacy left to us by the Venerable Master. The many return to the one returns to its original nature. Living beings grasping everywhere cover over the wonderful. Let go and release your hold, and the wonderful will be revealed. There are many methods, but the most recommended and common method to accomplish this is to recite Amita Buddha's name. This method will sever the many thoughts with this one thought. Not only is there Amitabha's Pure Land, but there are also countless ineffable other Buddha lands. Each Buddha has its own land. So who is reciting the Buddha's name? Is it just our thinking minds and emotions that cover over the true mind? Stop drowning in emotion and just practice. Stop seeking, just practice. All dharmas are like this. You have to do it. You have to practice. You can't think about it so much. We are all multitasking in our daily lives, trying to balance our practice with our perceived goals and responsibilities. But if we want to have a sacred response in our practice, we must allow the time for exploring a sincere and single mind. A single mind is a still mind. Sincerity means to be totally focused. As the Master said, when the mind is focused, it will be efficacious. When the mind is scattered, there will be obstructions. So if you feel your life is full of obstructions, focus your mind. There's one story I'd like to tell about how the Venerable Master taught people how to have a sincere heart, how to have a sincere mind. Maybe before, but from the years in Hong Kong throughout the 70s and occasionally later, this happened mostly when there weren't so many people in the Buddha Hall, but during the ceremonies, during the incense praise, the Master would offer incense to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas on behalf of the assembly. Sometimes he would indicate that someone else in the assembly should also offer incense. This always seemed somewhat random, and it took me a long time to figure out why. It turns out that if you had a sincere mind for the Dharma, then he would choose you to offer incense to the Buddhas on behalf of the assembly. If you were just mouthing the words and not involving your heart, or were just false thinking, then he would never choose you. But with a true, selfless, and sincere heart, he would usually indicate that you could offer incense to the Buddhas with him. In this way, he taught his disciples directly through the mind to know what a sincere mind was like. When you stop seeking outside, then the door opens. This is one small example of the incredible, ineffable, wonderful teaching that a good knowing advisor can help his students with. By knowing the mind of his disciples, he could show them through positive reinforcement how to train the mind and work on various aspects of cultivation. In this case, it was how to have a sincere heart. And it was, I feel very blessed to have been able to experience this through him. The Master said once, in cultivation, one should concentrate on inner skill and outer accomplishment. By cultivating both blessings and wisdom, one will succeed. One should practice the Bodhisattva way for the good of all, support the triple jewel, and be of service to all living beings. In that way, one may perfect the blessings and wisdom and naturally come to end birth and death. The final goal of the Buddha Dharma is to help us end birth and death and become Buddhas. When this is realized, the path becomes clearer. There are many ways to do this. There are so many other worlds in the Dharma realm. If we didn't have offenses, heavy offenses, we wouldn't be born in this Saha world. But on the other hand, we're fortunate to have encountered the Buddha Dharma in this world. If emotions are not and desires are not severed, it's impossible to transcend this turning wheel we are on. Somebody asked me, how can I be reborn in the next life with the Venerable Master? Now, this isn't anything I have knowledge of, but everything we are taught is in this world is a result of cause and effect. So cause and effect are the way we steer cause and effect is with our vows. So I would suggest that all of us should make a vow to, many of us make vows to be reborn in Amitabha's Pure Land. We could also make a vow to help the Venerable Master in his next incarnation in whatever world system he goes to. There's a certain beauty to this, and I think that all the patriarchs from Shakyamuni Buddha had this merit and virtue that attracts living beings. So we should all produce a sincere heart and seek to help the Venerable Master propagate the proper Dharma. And if we practice the proper Dharma, then we're just Dharma protectors, and Dharma protectors are protected by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So have a sincere heart and work really hard. The Master nurtured his students towards awakening to their original self-nature. Along the way, he was constantly showing us by example how to practice countless Dharma doors, how to practice Chan, how and why to practice the Vinaya, and why it is so essential to use the precepts as a foundation to a solid practice and a proper mind. The importance of the teaching school, of understanding and transmitting the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, the importance of reading, reciting, translating, writing out, and publishing the Buddha Dharma to benefit oneself and benefit others, to understand the merit and virtue by giving whatever we can to support the Triple Jewel. This is our inheritance from the Venerable Master and the legacy left to us by him. He always worked vigorously to print sutras, build and rebuild new monasteries. He endlessly taught people the proper Dharma and led living beings away from confusion to clarity and wisdom. He planted seeds of Dharma appropriate to the nature of people's wishes. He taught infants with candy from his pockets, and he found methods to educate living beings and propagate the Buddha Dharma with expedient methods using music, poetry, painting, sculpture, writing, calligraphy, translating texts, publishing, and lecturing. He never stopped making a world to benefit living beings from his earliest ambitions. It only became greater in scope and vision as he expanded his world. This is one small reflection on the Dharma legacy of the Venerable Master's teachings. So this is I had some notes I was working with, and I've spoken a little spontaneously. If anybody has any questions, I would certainly like to answer them. Otherwise, I can tell some more stories about the Master and about learning from him. Are there any questions?
Why don't you go ahead? Tell us more stories.
Okay, somehow I've got too many things in my windows. Hold on a second. I don't seem to be able to move this. Oh, can anybody see me now? Anyway, I cannot tell. Forgive me for.
Your camera is still off.
Camera is still off. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, you can turn on your camera. There's on the bottom left, there's a start video. And you click that and you should turn that on. Yeah, we see that.
Oh.
Finally.
Well, my apologies. Now I just have to make the screen bigger. I'm not too coordinated with Zoom, so I apologize.
Share the screen anymore.
Well,
he's still sharing the screen, but it's the picture remain the same.
okay. Okay, well, I can't figure out how to get a full screen here, but I want to tell some stories about coming of age with the Master. When I first met the Master, I was 23 years old, and the Master, the first time I met him, he said, "Oh, it's you. How have you been?" Which gave me the impression that somehow he'd known me before, and I certainly had the impression that I had known him before. So when I took refuge a few months later, he gave me the name 果歸, which means return to the fruit or fruit of return. And I always felt like I was returning to my original father and teacher. I'd known the Venerable Master before. And he sometimes would, at that time, there were very few people at the Buddhist lecture hall, which is where I first met him in San Francisco. And not long after that, by the next year, we moved over to the original Gold Mountain Monastery, a larger building with more people. And I started eating one meal a day. I started sitting up to sleep. One time we went to Buddha Root Farm. This was in 1975. It was the first Buddha Root Farm. And I had a car, and I don't know what the causes and conditions were, but the master needed to get around, and he told me that I should be his assistant, his aide during this week of Amitabha recitation and meditation. So at night I was sitting up, and the master saw that I was having a hard time sitting up. I would have to lean against the wall, sit in a corner so I wouldn't fall over. But so he saw me getting adjusted so I wouldn't fall over. And he said, "That's no way to sit. If you're going to study the Buddha Dharma, you have to sit upright without dwelling anywhere. You can't rely on anything. All you have is your body. You can't rely on anything outside your body." So I started sitting up that night. I think that there was a little bit of help from the master, but after that, my meditation improved greatly. And this was a breakthrough principle for me, that in our mind and in our body, we shouldn't rely outside. We shouldn't go outside for support. We shouldn't rely on anything. We shouldn't rely on anything outside and anything inside. And that means that when we're cultivating, we use all kinds of methods. We recite mantras, we recite Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we recite sutras, and these are all good for fertilizing our internal soil, so to speak. But ultimately, we want to still the mind, become one with our dharmas, the dharmas we're practicing, still the mind, and somebody helped me out here. I feel like I'm a little bit bigger. Thank you. We want to still the mind and return to our original nature. And this means not relying on anything, not dwelling anywhere. So this is the goal of Buddhists, to sincerely practice the Dharma, but ultimately see beyond it, go beyond it. There are some chat.
Here's a question I can translate into English for you.
Okay.
The question asking about how do you maintain vigor? So you have been cultivated for more than 50 years. How do you keep and
that's a good question.
Yes.
So life is interesting. One reason I think that the Master gave me the name Fruit of Return is because I was always trying to get away from the Buddha Dharma. And I never could. So if you keep, you have to make some resolve. And then you can't think about things so much. You just have to practice. I tried to emphasize this earlier. Even if you're feeling lazy, even if you're diverting yourself from practice, you always come back to it. It's just like reciting the Buddha's name. You go on diversions to infinite worlds, but you always want to come back to reciting the Buddha's name. And you don't want to attach to these diversions. When I was very young and all the new bhikshus and bhikshunis were at Gold Mountain Monastery, none of us knew what Buddhism was all about. And the Master lectured Dharma every day, instructed us in so many different ways, at so many times. I believe it was the Venerable Reverend Hung Sure who wrote a gata and put it to music about something about milkshakes. So after the Master would lecture the noon lecture after lunch in the early afternoon, a lot of disciples would run to the nearest creamery and get a milkshake. Well, these are, you can't feel too guilty about these things. You just have to do it and come back to your practice. And I'm not a very vigorous cultivator, but on the other hand, I'm always studying the Dharma. I read sutras every day. I have a Dharma practice, and sometimes it's more vigorous and sometimes it's less vigorous. Shifu said that one time he said that anytime we all establish our Dharma practice by experience, we start out with something and find whether that fits or it doesn't fit, and it evolves until we feel very comfortable and we're making some progress in the way. We have some experiences that give us reinforcement. And but he said that all of us should always do our dharmas. Don't ever stop doing the dharmas. If you just produce the mind that, oh, I don't feel like doing it today. Oh, I've got something more important to do. Oh, I'll do it later. Well, just having this thought is a lazy thought. And just having this thought wipes away limitless merit and virtue. of our cultivation. We can't see the merit and virtue of our cultivation as we're doing it. This is an invisible thing. Others may be able to see it. We can't see ourselves, can't see our Dharma body, our transformation bodies, and can't see the merit and virtue we attain, the light that we emanate, the light that we produce, but it has a great influence on the peacefulness of the world. So don't be vigorous and don't be not vigorous. Just do the work and have fun, but keep working. Don't be lax. And everybody has days when they're more vigorous and when they're less vigorous. That's why we have Chan sessions. That's why we have recitation sessions. We have repentance sessions. These are times when you give it everything you have. And if you give it everything you have, you'll have a response. So, I have things I have to do every day that aren't the Dharma, and everybody does. So, but when you practice the Dharma, don't do it single-mindedly. That's all I can say.
There's another question from Jerry. He asked, you mentioned Pure Land is tightly related to Chan. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, sure. That's a good question. Thank you for asking it. Chan is internal reflection. It's we reflect on our minds, and ultimately we want to understand how illusory, how empty our minds are. And the best way to do this is to recite the Buddha's name. There's many methods to do this, but a simple method for beginners and for advanced cultivators, those with little experience and those with lots of experience, can always recite the Buddha's name. So in the winter, we always have a Amitabha recitation session, and then we always have a Chan session after the recitation session. The reason for this is that we want to be able to focus on a Huato. And the Huato, the question that we ask ourselves is, who is reciting the Buddha's name? If you recite the Buddha's name and ask who is reciting the Buddha's name, then after you get through all the things that aren't reciting the Buddha's name and aren't Amitabha Buddha, then you might stumble on who is reciting the Buddha's name. And who is reciting the Buddha's name is just nobody. So ultimately, we're just nobody. Master Hua used to say, I'm nobody, I'm just a little ant, or I'm just the smallest creature. And I often said, I come from nowhere and I have nowhere to go. And this just means you dwell everywhere. So if you recite the Buddha's name very sincerely, you might see Amitabha Buddha. And you might not see Amitabha Buddha, but you might feel Amitabha Buddha rubbing the crown of your head. And you might even have states where you think you go to the Pure Land, where you visualize the Pure Land, and Amitabha is there speaking the Dharma. His Pure Land is speaking the Dharma. So the Shakyamuni Buddha said that for living beings in the Saha world, in Jambudvipa, where we are, we have the greatest affinity with Amitabha Buddha, with Amita Buddha. Amitabha is Amita Buddha in Sanskrit. So if you say Amitabha Buddha, it means Amitabha Buddha Buddha. So that I try and say Amita Buddha, and or just plain Amitabha. But these two things, Chan and Pure Land, are intimately connected, and they're both methods for understanding the mind and understanding that we have nowhere to go. We're getting close to the end here. There's a story that I like. There's a writer who's passed away now named John Blofeld, and he went to see the Venerable Master Shu Yun and had a interview with him. And Mr. Blofeld said, I think I'm beginning to understand that all the different schools of Buddhism just come from different direction, but all get to the same place. And the Venerable Yun said, no, you don't understand anything. There's no place to get to. So this is something to think about and contemplate and reflect on. Any other quick questions I could answer? The scroll behind me is calligraphy that the Venerable Master wrote. This is the Medicine Master mantra. And he gave it to my wife, Terry, and I, when we got married. He performed the wedding ceremony in what was then the Akshobhya Hall, the Medicine Master Hall. And he gave us this scroll that he'd written out. So this is the Medicine Master mantra written by Master Hua. And it's not.
Yeah, time is up. So,
pardon?
Time is up. So
yeah, time is up. So we should do the
before
merit.
Before we do that, Thomas and Fanyin will announce next Sunday's lecture.
Good.
And then after that, we'll dedicate minutes. So.
Okay, Amitabha, thank you so much, Alan. Next Sunday, Dharma Master Ze will be speaking on how to realize patience with the non-arising of dharmas. 下个礼拜是泽法师，恒泽法师要讲如何得到无生法忍。Amitabha.
Next, Alan Wang.
Do you want me to put up the?
I think we'll ask Alan Wang to lead us to chant the dedicate merit. And then you are out of the interpretation now.
share.
wasn't talking to Alan Wang. So,
Okay, Amitofo. So Faster, can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
So let me share the screen so that people will see the. Okay, go ahead.
Amitofo. May the Mary from this practice adorn all the Buddha's lands, repay the kindness from above, and rescue those in paths below. May all who see or hear all this resolve upon awakening, and when this body meets its end, be born together in the land of bliss.
You have those. In respect to the Venerable Master, thank you very much, Alan, for your wonderful talk, and also for Alan Wang's translation. 很感谢果归居士给我们的精彩的讲演，有王 Alan 王的翻译，谢谢大家的参与。So thank everybody's participation.
Thank you, Jin Yang Sir, for putting this together.
Yeah, Amitofo.
Amitofo.